Let us pray. God, we are nothing without your love, and there is nothing without your love. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. It is a gift to be with you this morning. My name is Kelsey, and there's my wife, Heather. Heather, give us a wave. I'm really grateful to be here with you this morning, and I'm also really grateful to be your curator for emerging communities here in this diocese. Our family is still fairly new here, so it's good to see some familiar people and also meet some new friends this morning. We've moved recently from Nashville, and the transition has been what transition is, full of complexity. There have been beautiful moments of joy, deep belly laughter, anxiety, and grief. We are learning what it means to transition well, how to let go of a community we love, and to open our hearts to new friends. It isn't always easy, but it's beautiful. And leaning into the vulnerability that transition requires is changing us, hopefully for the better. Somewhere along the spiritual journey, a wise teacher told me that the Christian life is one of perpetual transition. That is, as Christians, we are always somewhere between dying and rising, of letting go and of embrace, caught up between the sacred and the secular. As Christians, we are always in the process of becoming new, of becoming Christian, traveling along the journey together, trying to sniff out where heaven and earth are becoming one. Living into this holy rhythm of dying and rising, of finding where hope lives and calling attention to where love is healing us. This may just be what the Easter season is about. I didn't grow up in the church, and I learned way later in life that Easter isn't just a day, it's a whole season. The risen Christ doesn't just come with Easter eggs and pastel colors, but in fact, it is a season that is inviting us into the possibility of a new life for our whole lifetime. We are called to pay attention to the way that our hearts and the world are being made new all the time. And the readings that this morning that we've heard weave images of newness that are profound. And if I had it my way, we would brew a pot of tea and we'd cozy up to each other for hours unpacking and sharing our stories around these texts. They are inviting us to use our imaginations, the mystical eyes of our hearts, to see the possibility of hope and new life amid a world that is suffering and hungry for transformation. But we don't have a pot of tea, and we don't have hours to sit together. But what we do have is a small but mighty story from John's Gospel. The gospel we've heard this morning is part of a larger narrative that we received during Holy Week on Maundy, Thursday. It's no mistake that we are hearing Jesus' new commandment to love one another repeated this week. For love is the lens in which we seek to understand what it takes to manifest a new heaven and a new earth where God is making all things new. John's gospel tells us of the last meal that Jesus shared with his friends before his arrest. We are situated in the moment after Jesus has washed the disciples' feet and Judas has left the upper room, betraying Jesus and handing him over to the authorities. John is a fabulous writer. He is the gospel writer that is full of signs and wonders, miracles and healings. He is flamboyant, borderline over the top. He is the mystical gospel writer, the cosmic bursting forth kind of guy. But this morning, we hear a different side of John. There is an urgency in his writing. No parables or metaphors, no room for anything extra. What we hear is as straightforward and as clear as Jesus gets. Jesus tells his disciples, "You will look for me, but where I am going you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you." What a simple and profound ethic. In the moment of Judas's betrayal of Jesus and his community, amid the transition about to happen, the chaos and the suffering and the loss to ensue, of all the things Jesus could have said in this moment, he chooses love each other. What this whole Christian life boils down to, my friends, where the new heaven and the new earth, where transformation emerges, is from love. You will look for me, Jesus tells his friends, and so he tells us too. And as we move through the Easter season and through our lives, searching for where hope lives, we will find the risen Christ. We will find God in the loving actions that surround us. My friends, this is beautiful and good news, because each time we say yes to love, yes to some small, quiet action that brings the kingdom of heaven to earth, something in us heals, and something heals in our world. An Episcopal priest named Barbara Brown Taylor has this to say: to make bread or love, to dig in the earth, to feed an animal or cook for a stranger, these activities require no extensive commentary, no lucid theology. All they require is someone willing to bend, reach, chop, stir. And most of these tasks are so full of pleasure that there's no need to complicate them by calling them holy. And yet, these are the same activities that change lives. Sometimes all at once, and sometimes more slowly, the way dripping water changes stone. In a world where faith is often construed as a way of thinking, bodily practices remind the willing that faith is a way of life. And so I wonder, as I've wondered with some of my friends this week, what might be a story of how a loving action has healed you? Some of the most powerful stories of how love heals comes from a community called Thistle Farms. Thistle Farms is made up of a band of women who spent years on the streets, involved in prostitution, addiction, and trafficking. Thistle Farms is a justice enterprise that supports healing through housing, jobs, and a community of advocates. The women of Thistle Farms are healing, recovering, and inspiring an entire world of witnesses. They are living examples of resurrection and testify that love is the most powerful force for change in this world. I have had the privilege and the honor of being a friend to this community of love and healing. Heather and I have spent years sitting in a meditation circle, working side by side, laughing and crying, grieving and celebrating with our sisters at Thistle Farms. One of the most powerful rituals of love shared in this community is that each day the women gather together, they stand in a circle, and they light a candle. The women of Thistle Farms know that it took a community of broken systems to land them on the streets, and that it takes a community of love to restore their lives. So the community gathers to light a candle for the woman still walking the street. The women light the candle because the candle was lit for them. And they light the candle so that the next woman who is ready to recover, to gain new life, can find her way through the darkness and come back home. Heaven and earth blend together when we choose to love one another. When we light candles, when we show up and simply do what love does. Jesus asks us to love each other. And I don't always know what this means or what this looks like in my life. But what I do know is that loving actions, no matter how small or quiet, no matter how insignificant it might feel in the moment, each one of these moments counts. And when added up, these are the moments that create the momentum that we call the Jesus movement. Each loving action is manifesting heaven on earth, bringing about transformation to this world because love heals us. Love makes us new. And I wonder what newness and new life might mean for you. One of my favorite teachers in our moment right now is Lutheran pastor Nadia Bolz-Weber. She offers a vision for new life that is poignant. She says that new doesn't always look perfect. Like the Easter story itself, new is often messy. New looks like recovering alcoholics. It looks like reconciliation between family members who don't actually deserve it. New looks like every time I manage to admit that I was wrong, and every time I manage to admit that I'm not right. New looks like every fresh start, every act of forgiveness, and every moment of letting go of what we thought we couldn't live without, and then somehow living without it anyway. New is the thing we never saw coming, never even hoped for, but ends up being exactly what we needed all along. And I would add this: new life is where love is, and love is here. The Lord is risen. Amen.